Hey everyone, it's Rod with Power Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth, your home for MJ stocks, crypto assets, and interviews. Today's Thursday, June 15th. Hope you're doing awesome. And in this video, we're going to be going over by popular request High Tide Inc. earnings review for the second quarter 2023. They were fantastic earnings. Full disclosure, I do own this stock as well. Definitely my biggest retail holding in the MJ space. And like I said, very stellar earnings. Definitely one of the shining stars in the space with all of the turmoil that's going on. It's been a brutal couple of years. But obviously the share price of High Tide, lots of investors still not happy with that, even though the financial results were really good and things are trending in the right direction. We're just not seeing the value represented in the share price, which is frustrating. I can definitely relate to each and every one of you, but we'll do some analysis here on what we could potentially expect. Things are starting to ramp up here into the summer. It looks like we could potentially be due for a bit of a summer lull like normal, and then into the end of the year here we could see some fireworks. But before we get to it, make sure to smash the like, help support me in the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. If you're new, you can subscribe, take the bell to be notified on any future videos or when I go live. Getting really close to that 500,000 view mark, so first and foremost, thank you very much to the community. I really do appreciate it. But High Tide has been capturing a ton of market share, and I only predict that to and expect that to continue to be a trending that trend to grow, because of the fact that we're starting to see more and more pressure on the retail space. And I did a video, it was 8 days ago, on Fire and Flower, and basically bankrupt. They were granted creditor protection, so not exactly bankruptcy, but going through the Insolvency Act here in Canada, where they try to maximize assets and things like that. And I speculated that maybe High Tide or even SNDL could potentially do a stalking horse bid, which is just a type of bid for assets to maximize the value before they go to auction. And yeah, we don't want to see this in the space, but unfortunately there's going to be a lot more of this where a lot of the mom and pop, the smaller retailers are probably going to go out of business, and then we're going to see a lot of the licensed producers as well, right? It's been said that there's over 1,000 LPs here in Canada, and that's just unsustainable, right? So there's going to be a lot more consolidation, bankruptcies, insolvencies, in my opinion, in the space. But obviously High Tide really benefiting from some of these other struggles that other companies and rivals are having in the space, right? But like I said, full disclosure, I am an owner of High Tide, and like I said, I think that this company is poised for great success in the long term. And it's unfortunate that Fire and Flower wasn't able to keep up, but High Tide just really eating into their business, right? That's pretty much all I shop at is Canna Cabana, which is owned by High Tide, and they believe in like the lowest price, right? So they're just really stealing customers, that and Value Buds. But between Value Buds and High Tide, I shop at Canna Cabana pretty much 90% of the time. I do find that Value Buds has a little bit more of a selection, but High Tide usually has a better price now, and it's close to home. And like I said, I just really like the programs that they have and things like that. So we'll cover this as quickly as possible. There's a lot to go over here. There's the MD&A, management discussion and analysis, and I want to do some analysis as well on the technicals. So we'll jump through this as quickly as possible. But Canadian MJ retailer High Tide narrows quarterly loss to 1.6 million Canadian. The firm posted a net loss of 1.6 million for its second quarter and revenue of 118.1 million. So we'll just take a look here. Analyst forecast was 116.43 million for revenue, and then negative 0.0533. So EPS came in at negative 0.02 and revenue at 118.14 for the quarter. So we actually beat in both estimates. And then if you take the loss, which was 1.568 million divided by the amount of shares outstanding, which is 74,663,236. You give a negative EPS here, earnings per share of negative 0.02. So that's how you get to that EPS. And like I said, increased from about 3 pennies from the prior quarter. So we're starting to see this trend where we could potentially end up in positive territory here as soon as September earnings. So things are starting to look really good here for High Tide. But we'll go through this a bit quicker here. So 1.6 million quarterly net loss represents an 81% improvement over the same quarter in the previous year and a 59% improvement from the previous quarter. So great numbers there. Revenue increased nearly 46% compared to the second quarter of 2022, and it increased less than 1% from the previous quarter. So pretty much flat quarter over quarter. High Tide noted that the second quarter was 3 days shorter than the first and is seasonally slower quarter. The Calgary, Alberta-based MJ retailer also owns MJ Accessory and CBD E-commerce platforms, among other assets, reported a 27% gross profit margin for the quarter ended April 30th, consistent with previous 3 quarters. Gross margins in High Tide's physical MJ stores ticked higher sequentially. Our brick and mortar margins have increased by approximately 1% every quarter for the last 5 quarters, and we feel there is further opportunity to increase margins in most markets where we operate, said Raj Grover, the CEO, in a statement. Grover added that High Tide had achieved nearly 10% of the Canadian retail market share outside of Quebec, which Quebec government has a monopoly on the MJ retail. High Tide believes that there remains a significant opportunity to continue moving towards our goal of capturing 15% of the market share. And again, with Fire and Flower financially struggling, it looks like they're poised to really capture that 15%, in my opinion. The retailer reported 153 stores across Canada, and competing Canadian MJ Retail Fire and Flower Holdings was recently granted creditor protection after repeated quarterly net losses. And High Tide trades as HITI on the NASDAQ. So again, we'll see whether or not High Tide comes in with a stalking horse bid, or maybe SNDL as well, getting into MJ Retail quite a bit. So that was an interesting and well-written article there from MJ Biz Daily. But here is the actual nitty-gritty of all of the significant highlights. So 13th straight quarter of positive adjusted EBITDA, representing 174% increase year over year and 20% sequentially, driven by significant cost reductions in general and administrative expenses. High Tide reaches 9.5% of the Canadian MJ retail market outside of Quebec, up 9% from the previous quarter. Same-store sales increased 30% year over year and 1% sequentially. Calculated daily same-store sales increased by 5%, and there were 3 fewer days in the quarter, which we mentioned. High Tide remains the highest revenue-generating MJ company reporting in Canadian dollars. Canna Cabana continues to be the largest non-franchised MJ retailer in Canada with 153 locations and has surpassed 1,040,000 Canna Club members, which we know they were one of the first ones to offer that, while High Tide's global customer database exceeds 4.5 million. So very impressive. Go through this a little bit quicker here. So adjusted EBITDA increased to 6.6 million for the second fiscal quarter 2023, compared to 2.4 million during the same period 2022, representing that 174% increase year over year and 20% sequentially. Gross profit margin for the 3 months ended April 30th was 27%, consistent with the previous 3 quarters. So let's move on here. And again, I'm not going to go through all of this just in effort of time. So yeah, net loss negative 1.6 million, and company generated fully diluted earnings per share of negative 0.02, as I mentioned. Free cash flow was negative 2 million in the second quarter fiscal 2023, compared to 0.8 million in the first quarter 2023. Importantly, this includes a meaningful reduction of $6.8 million in accounts payable and accrued liabilities during the second fiscal quarter. Free cash flow also represented a 66% improvement versus negative $5.8 million in the second fiscal quarter of 2022. Cash on hand as of April 30th, 2023 totaled $22.5 million. So yeah, here's some other operational highlights. The company ranked 31st out of 500 of the Financial Times America's fastest growing companies in 2023 list, and took the top spot in retail category. So that is definitely a great achievement there. Company presented virtually at the Sequire MJ and Psychedelics Conference. Let's move through here. Company continued to roll out its higher margin Cabana MJ Co. products in Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Ontario, with 13 white label SKUs currently being sold in these markets. So we'll wrap this up here. Company celebrated Earth Day 2023 by announcing it contributed to the diversion of 20,000 pounds of plastic waste from landfills through its partnership with ReWaste. Company maintained its status the highest revenue generating company, MJ company in Canada. So elite memberships for the second fiscal quarter totaled over 13,500 members, representing an increase of 42% from 9,500 on March 17th, 2023. So decent size growth there in terms of their elite paid memberships, which they were, like I said, they were the first company to do that. So we'll move through this a little bit quicker. I do want to go down to share capital. So there's a lot in here, but basically the balance total amount of shares was 74,663,236. And again, you take the net loss, which was 1.568 million, divided by that share count, 74,663,236, and you get that negative 0.02 for the earnings per share. And like I said, they did beat in terms of both EPS and revenue estimates. So going through the MD&A here, it is quite long. Just wanted to go over a couple of key points here. So here's all of the established consumer brands. If you're not familiar with those, you can take a look at the screen here. Canna Cabana obviously being the one that everybody knows. But we'll go through this a little bit here. So competitive landscape. Just want to see what they mention in here. Companies retail MJ products operations operate amongst many competitors, both consolidated chains and independent operators. Notable competitors include Fire and Flower Holdings, Nova Inc., as well as numerous independent retailers. So Nova Inc. is the Value Buds, and SNDL has a piece of that as well. And then Fire and Flower, which we know is really struggling financially. So again, I expect them to grow that market share. I think 15% is definitely doable. Let me know in the comments below if you agree with me. Most of the company's competitors applicable to its wholesale segment operate primarily as product distributors, while Valiant designs, sources, and distributes most of their own products. This creates advantages through vertical integration, thereby enabling Valiant to bring unique product designs and market and offer wholesale customers favorable terms, proprietary products, and flexible pricing. And then obviously, because High Tide and these retailers are big into paraphernalia, right, bongs and pipes and things like that, those things, they're not actually, producing like some of our producers. Most of the companies that are struggling in the space have been producers, but again, we're starting to see this trend now where retailers are struggling, and it's most of it's because of this competitive landscape, right, that we're seeing here in the MD&A, and it really is, a sign of the times, and it's probably just going to continue to get worse, unfortunately. But in the future, the company expects that its brick and mortar retail operations will experience slightly reduced competition to what it faced in the prior quarters from the recreational MJ industry, as a greater number of third-party stores are realizing negative or flat growth across Canada. As the legalization of MJ in Canada occurred in October 2018, the company expects that significant amount of leases are coming due and hitting the standard 5-year renewal period. Our expectation is that few competitors will not renew their leases. The company believes through its innovative discount club model that its vertically integrated e-commerce and wholesale operations, product and industry knowledge, robust loyalty program, and operational expertise will enable it to operate profitably over the long term. I would agree. While the company is presently focused on its existing markets in provinces of Ontario, Alberta, Saskatchewan, British Columbia, and Manitoba, the company is looking to expand its presence in Ontario and other provinces, which we anticipate in fiscal year 2023. The company is currently evaluating entering other provinces and territories, including Northwest Territories and the Yukon, as regulations permit, and anticipate being able to grow both organically as well as through acquisitions in the future. So we could see some acquisitions, and like I said, speculating that maybe we even see a stalking horse bid potentially for Fire and Flower assets. So there's the net loss. All right, gonna start wrapping it up here. We'll take a quick peek at the chart here as well. I'll just skim through this here. A lot of it's just redundant, and then it goes to break up some of the individual brands. Talks about EBITDA. So yeah, this is definitely a promising company. Like I said, definitely looks like it's going to be here for the long term, and one of the shining stars in the space. But again, share price just not what people want to see. Obviously, the value, in my opinion, not reflected in the share price whatsoever. But you can see here a nice surprise in terms of EPS and revenue. Revenue, not that bad, or not that big of a surprise, but definitely on the EPS front there of 62%. But we'll take a look at the chart here real quick. So, I mean, from the February 2021 highs, basically all MJ down 80 to 90% plus, and there from the high to the low there, High Tide down over 92%. And people are wondering, how's that possible when the numbers are fantastic and the company continues to grow quarter over quarter, year over year? And it's because it's an industry problem, right? When we have a nascent industry and a high growth industry, usually they follow together, right? Not down to the second, the day, the minute, but usually over the weekly, the monthly time frames, the charts look similar. And it's just unfortunately part of the MJ space. So therefore it's down over 90% from its all-time highs in the last couple of years. And there's no shortage. Even the companies in the US, like Trulieve, Curaleaf down over 90% from its February 2021 highs and all-time highs. And same with, the producers here in Canada, right? CGC down over 96, 97%, Hexo down over 99%, Tilray down over like 97%, right? So it's an industry problem at the moment. And taking a look at the monthly time frame here, we do have a monthly bear flag here with the high, low, lower high. So to negate the monthly bear flag, we need to get over 311, and this is on the NASDAQ, so it's in US dollars. But we actually did confirm the monthly bear flag with a break there of support at 130. Once we lost 130, that confirmed the monthly bear flag, and then we got as low as 103. We actually had a weekly bear flag as well that was targeting $1, and we got as low as 103. But now we have a monthly bear flag, which you take the move out from the high to the low there, and you move it out to the 0.32 fib, and that gives you a measured move of about 70 cents. So from the recent low there at about $1.03, it's saying we could drop another 30% from here. Does it mean that we have to? Absolutely not. It's just saying technical analysis is saying this is the most likely scenario. Unfortunately, and like I said, we could see a little bit more downside if we start to see more and more companies go insolvent. This is something I've been warning about as well. More and more retailers, especially the mom and pop shops, and then we could see some more individual LPs, right, licensed producers here in Canada, go insolvent because there's hundreds of millions of excise taxes that are unpaid to the federal government. So while the federal government has been the biggest beneficiary of MJ legalization here in Canada, making all of these tax dollars, they're now the biggest creditor for these companies as well. And there's over 1,000 LPs. That's just not sustainable, right? And with hundreds of millions of unpaid federal excise taxes, it's just going to be a matter of time before. And like I said, I'm expecting a bit of a summer lull here into the end of into the summer, and then into the end of the year. I think we could see some massive upside for a lot of our names. So that's why I'm thinking we could see a little bit more downside, maybe a flush of $1. Do we get as low as 70 cents? Your guess is as good as mine, but this is what the chart is saying, so don't be surprised if we do go there. But it might provide, if you're wondering, should I wait and add more now or wait, could we see more downside? Personally, I'm going to be adding more high tide to my portfolio, my long-term one, but I'll be waiting patiently. I'm going to wait potentially till we dip back down to around $1, if not below that, somewhere around 90 cents. And then I'll add again around 80, add again around 70 cents. But I think this is a great opportunity. We can change our mindset. We can hate the price as much as we want, but at the end of the day, it's just a buying opportunity. And I think high tide's going to be here for the long term. But obviously not immune to the struggles in the MJ space at the moment. But we know that there was some news out today that safe banking is really gaining some traction. And Chuck Schumer thinks that it's very possible that it could pass this time around. We know that the vote could be in the next couple of weeks. And then HHS is committed to getting that scheduling update done by the end of the year. So we could, all signs are pointing to a summer lull, which is very common, and then seasonality effect into the fall, where we could see more individual states legalize. We could see HHS come back. We could see safe banking vote, and and the MJ Act here in Canada is up for renewal as well, which we could see some movement on that into the fall as well. So it's looking like things are really starting to heat up here, and we could see some fireworks to the upside into the end of the year. But we're bullish on the MACD, we're still bullish on the stochastic, and we're perfectly holding that 10-week moving average right now on on high tide. So it's looking like this could potentially see some fireworks, because we're still holding bullish out of those three massive indicators and macro indicators. The only thing I'm concerned about here is this 50 weekly. If we can see a weekly candle close, I'd like to see a couple of candles, at least two, preferably three, over that 10-week moving average. And if we get that, over the next couple of months, we could see a move up with a lack of resistance to about $3 here on the weekly moving averages. And then in terms of the daily moving averages, we also have the 200-day moving average there at 142. So that 50 weekly and the 200-day moving average, after that, we virtually have no resistance till about $3. And the 50-day moving average is below the 200-day moving average, getting very, very close to a golden cross. The last time that happened was back in October 2020, prices around $2 and went all the way up to about $13. Then we had the death cross with the 50 above the 200 and it crossed. And price was at roughly $6, $7 when that occurred. And then we dropped all the way down to $1. So now we're seeing another golden cross, which could happen over the next it looks like it could happen in the next few weeks, actually, on high tide. So maybe we're starting to see a little bit of a leading indicator here that we could get some positive. I would say safe banking would more than likely be the catalyst here. But obviously, safe banking is going to be better for the MSOs and the producers in the U.S. Not so much in Canada, but Canada will benefit from the hype in the space. So, like I said, it could see a golden cross over the next few weeks, maybe the next couple of months, and then the weekly time frame as well. The macros are looking really, really good here for high tide. And then, we could see some move up to around that $3 mark, which would be some serious upside from here. And like I said, if we get safe banking, update in the next couple of weeks, that could be our catalyst that sees this golden cross. And then, like I said, if we see HHS and the MJ Act renewed review here in Canada, if we see any improvements there with regards to packaging, labeling, distribution, marketing, taxation, all that good stuff, this could really be an explosive end of the year. But let me know what you think about these earnings and High Tide going forward. Like I said, it could see potential for High Tide or SNDL stepping in to take over some of the fire and flower distressed assets. Might even be a stalking horse bid, similar to what happened with SNDL and Zenabis. So we'll keep an eye on that. But very, very, impressed with the stellar earnings and just really excited for the future of High Tide, and just anticipating a little bit more downside because of the fact that we're still getting over this bear market, and a lot more companies could go the way of the dodo, so to speak, and go insolvent, go bankrupt. A lot remains to be seen, but I'm fairly confident that we're going to see a little bit more downside, a little bit more pain before we see that gain. But again, just change your mindset. It'll be an opportunity to load up. But going to end it there, thanks again for joining us on The Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rod with Power Group. Like, share the video with anybody that might find value, and we'll see you again on the next one. Take care.